I'm looking at the white line. Well, I actually can't see the white line, but it runs all the way down through there. And the reason I can't see it is because it's all like it's a bit mucky and a bit overgrown around here. Now if I took this back with a rasp, we'd see the white line. So I will just take a rasp and I'll show you that shortly. But on the whole, this isn't really a bad foot. The white line is the structure that holds the sole to the hoof wall. And here is the sole, which is looking pretty good to me. You know, it's not like crumbly and exfoliating, meaning it's crumbling and breaking apart, which is a normal process. And quite often when you pick up your horse's foot and you run the hoof pick on the sole, it all crumbles away, and that's what's called exfoliating sole, and that's quite normal. It's just like your own skin. Your skin is being produced all the time, the cells of your skin, and the outside of your skin gets worn off. And it's just the same analogy with this as well. The cells are constantly being produced from inside and making their way to the surface. And then those surface cells are being worn off and it's continually being produced. Now there's a big lump here of dirt. And because this is a frozen sample, I can't pull that off at the moment, but hopefully as this starts to defrost, I'll be able to pull this off. Let's have a look at this part here. Can you see where the heel is? And you've got like this part where the sole is. That's called the seat of corn. The hoof wall comes round and you get like a switchback, and then the bar starts to form. Now in this sample, the bar isn't particularly well defined because what I mean by that, can you see it looks like it's growing over a little bit here and it's a little bit lumpy and bumpy. It's not very high, but it seems to be like smearing a little bit over the sole. And the bar should end halfway down the frog, so ideally that bar should be ending there. But what we're actually seeing, or what I think we're seeing, is this part here. I think we're seeing bar that's appearing down here and a little bit here. So some trimmers would take that away and slither that off, and other trimmers would leave it. They would say that it acts as support for the foot. Other trimmers would say that you shouldn't have bar that's going over the sole like that because it's going to stop the sole from growing. Now let's have a look at the frog. So this is the frog here, and these are called the collateral grooves, and these are the bits that you actually clean out with your hoof pick to make sure there's no manure and rubbish all up through there. And this here is the central sulcus, and we shouldn't really see a little tight gap like that. Really what we want to see is just a nice dip, if anything, because you see these gaps are a breeding ground for bacteria and fungi, and that's when we start to get thrush appearing. Can you see if I turn it over? You know, there's quite a big gap through there, isn't there? Now, in some cases you can get a really thin little gap, and that would be a real problem for thrush. It can get in there very easily, and it can set up shop because it's moist and it's warm and it's got plenty of food, and so it can eat and eat away in there, and you wouldn't even know it was there because it's this little slit in the back of the foot. So always look at these slits to make sure that you don't have thrush invasion in there. Now the frog should really take up quite a bit of the hoof, and this isn't particularly a big frog, so it's not ideal, but it's a lot bigger than some of them that I have seen. However, it does seem to look a little bit contracted, and what that means is the back seems to be squishing up between here. That's almost what it looks like. It's squishing. And why would you get a contracted foot? Well, you can get a contracted foot if the horse has been shod for a while, or again you can get if you get thrush in here, you can get contraction going on. I think there are lots of reasons why you can get contraction. One would be a poor quality trim, whatever that means. You know, what is a good trim and what is a bad trim? I'm not really sure, but these are all the reasons that I've read as to why you would get contraction in the back of the foot, and And we don't really want to get that, because we want this part to be a really strong, thick structure, the frog. Very important for energy dissipation and transfer of energy into the rest of the foot. And also it helps the foot to know where it's standing. It helps the brain of the horse to know where it's standing, what it's standing on, if it's on wobbly ground or hard ground. Inside here are lots of receptors called proprioceptors, and what they are is they help the horse to know where it is in time and space. And if any of you have had a local anaesthetic to your foot and you've tried to walk, it's really hard, because you can't feel what's going on, and you can't feel where your foot is. And it's the same sort of thing with this. There are receptors in here that help the horse know where it is, where its foot is falling on the ground, and how it needs to arrange its body accordingly, depending on what sort of terrain it's walking on. So let's have another look at the sole a little bit more. There's a few cracks through here, which I think are quite normal. I don't think that's anything particularly to worry about. It's probably exfoliating sole through this part here. And this part here where the frog comes to this, like this point, like an arrow, is called the apex of the frog. So we quite often use that term, the frog apex. Now the other point I'd like to show you, if I can get this into the right light, I want to show you the doming of that sole. Now what we want to see is a nice doming of that sole. We don't want it to be really flat, because a flat sole is not a good sole. It needs to have a nice dome to it, and this really has got quite a good dome. Now the thing is with back feet, they normally have a much higher dome in the foot than front feet, and so this is to me a typical example of a back foot, because it's got this concavity in the foot. And I can see why you'd need concavity, because it means that just lifts the important structures off of the ground. And what do I mean when I say important structures? Well, I mean the coffin bone. So I'm just going to go and get a coffin bone for you, so you can have a look at what I mean by the concavity, and how the concavity here can mimic the coffin bone concavity.